Well, I never thought Cloverworks would betray me again, but here we are, I guess. Let's talk about this damn finale and how awful Cloverworks is for fucking up their only potential at a saving grace after the promised Neverland was fucked over so bad. Roll the intro and let's get started. First and foremost, I want to say that the workers at Cloverworks were treated horribly when making this OVA. They were crunched, overworked, and the producer was actually hospitalized twice from work-related stress due to working on this show. Seriously, I'm surprised nobody quit or died working on this show because the level of animator abuse is that bad. I know animators are abused frequently during production of anime, but Cloverworks takes the fucking cake. I'm mostly saying this as I don't blame the directors and animators. They were crunched, and I'm sure they wanted to do a full 45-minute anime special for this series or write a better finale. I'm blaming the higher-ups who forced this kind of crunch and abuse onto innocent animators. There's a major spoiler warning for this too, so if you're not caught up with Wonder Egg Priority for whatever reason, I highly recommend finishing it before watching this video. With that out of the way, let's continue. At the end of Wonder Egg Priority, we are left with a vast amount of character threads left hanging. The reasoning behind Koito's suicide, Momoe's trauma, Rika's trauma, what happens when a girl is revived, Neiru's sister, whatever the fuck is happening with Frill, the temptation of death thing, and becoming a warrior of Eros, or something like that. First of all, with a 45-minute episode, you'd think this be a lot of time to explain everything, right? Nope. Why is that? Because the first 25 minutes are dedicated to catching up on the entire series. I don't know why, because this comes with the DVD, so you're binging it all already, so you don't need a catch-up on something like this, but okay, I guess? I'd also like to mention there's an episode already giving a TLDR halfway through, so I don't understand why we need 2 TLDR for this anime. Are they trying to pull a My Hero Academia by reminding us of the plot every 5 minutes? Back to the story at play now. Neiru finishes her last Wonder Egg, but we never actually see what happens. This is due to the animation, which I'll explain later. Next is basically incoherent scenes of Ai and Neiru kinda walking around together until we finally see Ai and Koito interact with each other. Basically, Koito doesn't remember Ai at all. If you remember from earlier episodes, it's all but confirmed that girls who kill themselves are not actually revived, but a copy of them from an alternate universe is taken and merged with the current world as to prevent the universe from exploding, I guess. Seeing that Koito doesn't remember her leaves Ai confused, which doesn't make any sense when you go back literally to the finale where Ai meets a version of herself that took her own life due to bullying. So she didn't think that the Koito here is the one from an alternate dimension that doesn't know her? Due to this, we finally find out what happened to Koito. Apparently, she was a terrible person who bullied a teacher into suicide. She held a lot of guilt over it, and it's likely why she became friends with Ai in the first place in an attempt to redeem herself. After meeting with Mr. Sawaki, she asks him to come to the roof with her. She basically threatens to kill herself if he doesn't go out with her and starts saying that he assaulted her. She wasn't attempting to jump off the roof, but I guess she slipped, and so she never actually took her own life. It was just an accident. This part, I have no idea if he's telling the truth. There's a lot to this that would have caused Ai to find out about it through other students gossiping, so it's already bullshit. Another bullshit thing is having Koito basically accusing a teacher of a very serious crime, especially in a show like this where we already see the effects of not believing a victim. Now we're making it worse by throwing the fake victims thing? Look, I would have been fine if the show wanted to make Koito a shitty person. I think that would have been a great idea, to show that sometimes we befriend really awful people when we're vulnerable and just desperately need a friend. I've done that myself, and I'm sure many other people have done it too. But what's not cool is the assault accusation thing in a story where the teacher was already accused of assaulting Koito in the first place because he was close to her. Though to play devil's advocate, maybe the original plan was that Koito is a girl who likes to threaten adult men and gets a sick kick out of mentally hurting them with threats until they take their own life from the stress. That's not too crazy if you've seen some real life cases of people in general doing that kind of stuff. But the execution of that is extremely sloppy. Not to mention, what was with Mr. Sawaki drawing an adult version of his girlfriend's daughter being the other eye's trauma, implying that there was some kind of truth to what Koito was saying? And all that weird shit, like when I could have caught Mr. Sawaki abusing Koito? Unless this was all a red herring, but geez, that was the world's sloppiest red herring I've ever seen. Anyway, Ai realizes her true friend is actually Neiru and tries to call her, only Neiru basically answers that she doesn't know her or want to be friends with her, leaving Ai confused, so she goes to see her. There's a lot of random scenes of Ai walking. She gets so frustrated she breaks her phone, I guess? Frustrated and confused, she decides to hang out with Rika and Momoe, whose PTSD from their therapy pets dying is instantly cured, I guess? This doesn't make any sense to me. When we last see Momoe, she is literally a sobbing mess due to insomnia and trauma over what happened. The same with Rika, who was implied by the Akkas to almost start hurting herself again. So what the fuck was that about the trauma of these girls being so bad that they'd be, quote, victims of frill, so to speak? Though Momoe and Rika confirm to Ai that the girls they tried to rescue don't remember them either. They also say that Neiru has all but disappeared since clearing her Wonder Egg. I suggest they go see the Akkas and become Wonder Egg girls again, but Momoe says that that's a terrible idea because she doesn't want to die or see Frill's buddies ever again. Rika has also been banned from there by the Akkas, so she can't go back there either. Only for Neiru's secretary to call Ai as her and Rika are walking home together. The next day they go with her where she explains that the Neiru she spoke to wasn't actually Neiru but her sister Airu. While the idea of Neiru having a twin sister isn't bad, if anything it makes sense for some interesting inner angst, what comes next is kinda bullshit to me. Kotobuki, the girl Neiru considered a sister to her who died sometime before the series starts, is now alive again because she has reality hopping abilities, but she can't go to a world where another her exists. So after she dies, she just hops into this reality? Anyway, watching Neiru's dream, we see she was actually attacked by Frill's buddies, except this time she is ready to fight all of them until Frill comes up and asks to be her friend. If she does, she'll make her human, and here's the biggest twist of them all. Neiru is a robot like Frill. This twist makes no fucking sense to me when we've seen Neiru get injured and goes to a normal hospital in the real world. You're telling me not a single doctor did an x-ray or something? If she's a robot, how can she get injured in the first place? According to Kotobuki, Airu was absent for a time, so she made Neiru to keep her company. Airu got jealous and depressed over Neiru, so she tried to kill her and then herself. This pisses Rika off, where her and I share a one last semblance of emotional venting between them, grieving over everything they've been through. Except it's hard to appreciate this scene at the very least when it's just them standing and you can't see their facial expression. Later that night, I get a call from Neiru. She's torn because Neiru is her friend and she feels so conflicted that she was a robot the whole time and is trying to become human. When Neiru calls her that night, Ai throws out her phone. Now this, I did like, because Neiru completely went MIA after that, and it's presumed that she's in the afterlife now as a Wonder Egg. Not sure if that means she went with Frill or took her own life. But I like this because Ai's guilt over not answering the call. I only wish this scene had a better emphasis, showing us that we often make the very human mistake of missing that very important phone call when someone needs us. Though after Neiru completely disappeared, I switched schools because she couldn't stand being near Koito again, knowing that she doesn't remember her at all. After that, Ai stops talking to Riko and Momoe and gets busy for a while until she remembers she wants to see Neiru again. She runs to the Akkas where it ends with her agreeing to be a Wonder Egg protector again. Thus, a really shitty ending to be honest. Half of what's in this damn OVA conflicts with the entire series and what it wants to tell in the first place. How do I fix this? I genuinely don't know because there are elements that I can see working, but they need more time to establish it actually working in the first place. Overall, I was extremely disappointed in the ending of this OVA. I wasn't expecting them to tie up every loose thread, but to boil down the intense themes of self-harm, depression, and assault that teenage girls face as just teenagers are attention-seeking and dramatic, it's just awful that it's borderline offensive in the case of Koito. Let's not forget the pacing was all over the damn place too. The animation was extremely disappointing. Again, Cloverworks animators and writers were put through hell to make this series, so I'm not faulting them. Any insult here is towards the higher-ups who forced these poor animators to work through hell to get this done on an impossible time schedule. The OVA has moments where it's consistent brilliance throughout the series. Then it cuts a lot of corners. By a lot of corners, I mean this rectangular piece of paper is now a damn circle from all the cut corners. There's a lot of scenes you can tell they wanted to show, but they were left with no other option than to use the dream recording excuse, so we didn't have to see Frill's friends animated. This is likely because Frill's friends here must have been extremely expensive to animate, so they left them off screen as the other characters watch. Any moment of serious, important conversation is left with still images or very brief animation. Take for instance the flashback of what happened to Koito. Instead of showing us, it's vague scenes of her standing on the roof with some witnesses. Which again, I not knowing why Koito did this doesn't make sense if there were multiple witnesses who saw her shout at Mr. Sawaki about assaulting her. So you'd think there'd be a really big deal and possibly cause him to lose his job. Maybe rumors of faculty or police investigating him. I mean, none of that would have been taken so lightly in a realistic situation. Anyway, the coloring and character designs are still great, nothing looks off-model, the colors look gorgeous, and so on and so forth. While the story may be hot garbage, at least some of the animation is still good, even if they did cut a lot of corners to make this work. I really wish I knew what the hell actually happened to this show's downward spiral for this OVA. Why advertise a 45-minute OVA when it's actually just 25 minutes? Why did this show suddenly take a full turn into sci-fi? There's a lot of things I do like. I actually really liked the idea of Ai learning that Koito was a shitty person and Neiru was actually her real friend all along. There's actually a really awesome story idea, but what I hate is the execution of it. I do like the idea of sci-fi by exploring dreams and using reality-hopping technology to bring dead girls, quote, back to life via a reality merge. What I don't like is forcing robots into it with Neiru and Frill. Don't get me wrong, the episode of Uraraka giving the backstory to Frill is one of the best episodes in the series. Honestly, you could have made an entire separate movie with the plot and it would have been amazing. But Frill as an antagonist cheapens the series. I know that symbolically, Frill is meant to represent the internet. More specifically, online bullying, the media romanticizing taking your own life, and bad influences basically baiting you into hurting yourself or worse. I think that much is obvious, but in execution, the idea of a robot basically saying that the only reason girls take their own lives is because an AI is telling them to sounds ridiculous, insensitive, and in kind of poor taste. Again, I wasn't thinking they needed to wrap up every loose thread possible because obviously they can't, but at least I wanted something that felt satisfying and respectful to what they were doing in the first, 10 episodes? If there is a season 2, which I highly doubt due to basically Cloverworks' reputation being a dumpster fire at this point in the anime community, but if it somehow got a season 2, I would like to think they would fix all these issues. But considering that Cloverworks' reputation is, as I said, very poor right now, I don't think this anime is ever getting a second season. At this point, I would honestly say not to watch the OVA because it contradicts so much of the original series. And I think the finale where we were at in the original is fine, even if a bunch of loose threads are left open to interpretation. I mean, I'm fine with a series ending openly. It makes for some great fanfics, that's for sure. But I do feel bad for the other fans who are looking for very strict explanations to everything, only to be met with more confusion and more questions. Overall, the Wonder Egg Priority OVA was pretty bad and pretty much destroyed any possible faith I could have had left in Cloverworks. But let me know down below what you think. Did you like the Wonder Egg Priority OVA, or did you hate it as much as I did? Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new! And if any older new subs would like to help support the channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who would like to help with video ideas or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, then I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!